Hello everyone, and welcome back to Consultation. And today we're going to be talking about chapters 8 through 10. At this point, you are pretty much finished with this book, and you're really starting to think about how to put all of this stuff that you've learned into action and how to really start conceptualizing your own consultation case. And I want to just reiterate that I really want this consultation case that you all do to really be practice. So I don't want you to be so concerned about doing it quote unquote right, or making sure that you meet specific guidelines, because as you see in the syllabus, I've given you some, but I haven't given a ton, because you all are already doing consultation. You're already doing this work, and I want this project to be applicable to the work that you're already doing, and for it to include your style and your natural way of working with folks. So for you to just get used to maybe doing it in a different way, maybe including some different pieces, maybe working with people in a different way, as you've seen as the book outlines how to go through the consultation process, how to include observations and data and records and all of those things. So I really just want this to be beneficial and applicable and meaningful to you as you think about your own case. So we are pretty much at the end of this text, and you are going to be reading the book Switch soon if you haven't already. And the major heavy reading for this textbook is kind of over. So now the class in the beginning kind of focuses a lot on reading, and now towards the end it's going to be kind of focusing more on application. And next week you have kind of a break, kind of a breather, where we talk a little bit about mindfulness and self-awareness, intention, and then you go into reading the book Switch and really developing your consultation case. And then the last week you start to really put your case together, and the last class is really focused on you all presenting your cases to each other and learning from each other. So this week we're talking about parents and guardians and family consultation, consultation case examples, and evaluating consultation effectiveness. The book talks about that, with few exceptions, the family, and in particular parents exert the most significant influence on the development of an individual. Now I add guardians to this because we may not always be working with quote unquote parents. We may be working with grandparents. We may be working with aunts and uncles that have custody. We may be working with blended families, step families, all of those kinds of things. So I want to make sure that that phrase is being inclusive of all of the different types of families and couples that we work with. It's important to consider how the parent units and how the family units play a role in our process and consultation, how they play a role in the individual's life, whether they're a child or whether they're an adult. There's family of some sort, and as we've seen, this influences the person's lifestyle, their behavior, their values, their beliefs, how they interact on a daily basis. So to ignore this, the tremendous impact of the family on personality development, would be to ignore a huge piece of that individual. And we want our consultation and the work that we do with folks to be holistic, to be inclusive, to just make sure that we are really paying attention to all aspects of that individual. The family becomes the first socializing agency, as parents and siblings help the child develop an identity, which helps the individual figure out how to find a place in the world. So back to that belonging, the need for belonging and the need for significance. A healthy family unit is the most important ingredient in a healthy society. And I want to take a second and just think about, do we really believe that? And do we really nurture that? I'm not sure we always do, especially in schools. I'm not sure that schools are nurturing to families. I've worked in plenty of community agencies that I'm not sure were nurturing to families. And so looking around and thinking, one of the biggest predictors of a child's success in school is parent involvement. So why would we not want our schools to be more parent and guardian and family friendly? Why would we not want our agencies to be more parent and guardian and family friendly? And how can we make things more community-based and more family-based and more people-based instead of being based around the needs of the individuals in charge? So as we think about childhood, and as you've been visiting this concept throughout this course, I want you to really take a second, pause the PowerPoint, and I really want you to look back at your own personality development. So take some time to really think, what connections can you make? What did you learn from your family environment? As you're developing and you're finding your place in the world, how did your family, how did your guardians, your parents, your grandparents, your extended family, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your friends, whoever it is, how did those people influence the ways in which you view the world? How did they influence your beliefs, your values, your culture, the meaning of life, how you understand trust, how you understand love, adequacy, acceptance, all of those different things? Take a few minutes and really think about that. Parent education. Parent education is increasingly important for school mental health consultants, for agencies, for anybody working with individuals. Parental involvement must be beyond the typical one-time meeting if we really want our interventions to be successful. We really need to get parents involved. Parents need to feel included, that their ideas and information and things that they bring to the table matter, and that they also feel a sense of belonging and significance in the work that we do. The book talks about some different parent education programs, and I'm sure that you all are familiar with some as well. And we must think about, what are our schools doing to provide assistance to families? What are our agencies doing? What are our communities doing? How can we make these things more accessible? And turn in your book to page 145, the dotted list down at the bottom, and I want you to look over the advantages for parent consultation and just, what are your thoughts on this? So I'll go over a few. So parents find their concerns are often common to concerns raised by other parents, that normalizing so that folks don't feel so alone. Folks feel more likely to come forward and talk about the things that they're dealing with if they don't feel like they're the only ones dealing with it, or that they're somehow, their kid is some child anomaly, or they are some anomaly as parents and they can't make sense of what's happening. Groups are opportunities for parents to learn from each other and from us as the consultants. Parent education is a method that provides new skills, new ideas, skill practice, encouragement. We want to encourage our parents as well. If our parents can feel encouraged, our parents are going to be better able to encourage their children. It's a place for new ideas, new skills, and for parents to feel that they have a place that they can come, they can consult, that it's going to meet their needs. Your book talks about some really great books that I highly recommend. Children, the Challenge, and Raising a Responsible Child. I think these books are very beneficial. Another parenting program that I don't think the book talks about, or maybe I've missed it, but another wonderful parenting program is the Positive Parenting. It is excellent, and I feel like if more people had access to that information, then that could become more applicable to their lives and their families, and even to things that we can do at the school and agency and community level by providing free trainings. And I just think about, there was a school that I worked at, and we had Parent University every month. There was something that we had that we did a needs assessment. We figured out what it was that the parents wanted. So like one month, for example, we might do something on resume writing. Another month, for example, I remember we did something on balancing a checkbook, opening bank accounts, checking and savings accounts, those types of things. And in order to get the parents there, we had buses that picked folks up. We had childcare available so the parents could really focus and their kids could come and be taken care of. We provided dinner. And we also had a Parent University shop. So it was run with donations, but parents could get clothes. They could get clothes for themselves, clothes for their family, food, pencils, notebook paper, all the kinds of things. And they felt like they were more involved in the school, and they felt like the school was more for them as well, instead of a place where they drop their kids off and they may or may not hear from them, and the only time they hear from them is when something's going on and their kid's in trouble. So thinking of ways that we can get parents involved in the community as well, while understanding that there are going to be parents who just simply cannot be involved. And it's not for lack of trying, and it's not because they don't want to. It's because they may be working 3 or 4 jobs. So reaching out to folks and understanding that even if people aren't involved, it doesn't mean they don't want to be. Leadership skills. When we do these parenting education groups and we're structuring the group's time, the topic, the size, and the scope, this involves leadership skills, which you all have. You have all been doing projects, whether it be with parents or I'm just thinking of the projects you all have done in the past with your advocacy projects and all of the things that you have been in charge of, that your leadership skills have come in handy for. And some of the times I think that you have probably been in charge of things and been leaders of things, and you didn't even recognize that you were using leadership skills and putting something together and developing it in a meaningful way. And thinking about how you structure it. Seeking to universalize the experiences of the group members. Have you been running groups where someone shares something really meaningful and you look around and you see folks nodding their heads, and you say, I notice a lot of you all are nodding your head at what this individual said. Would you all like to contribute to that? Would you like to add your experience? Seems like folks are having some similar experiences that they may want to bring to the table. And using those leadership skills, using those group skills that you all have. And encourage. We don't just want to encourage the children and adolescents we work with. We want to encourage the adults that we work with, and we want to model that for them as well. The learning cycle. Okay, so parent education groups function successfully when the consultant understands areas of leadership skills, which we just talked about, the learning cycle, which we're going to talk about, and the stages of the group. So we talked about leadership skills, and the learning cycle is about new ideas are presented through discussion of the reading and charts. So when you're doing your parent education group or whatever type of education program you might be doing, you are going to be introducing new ideas to folks. Things that may not seem like new ideas to you, but they are to other people. So remember that. And it takes a while for this information to sink in. New ideas are then translated into specific skills. So for example, when you want to talk to the parents about encouragement, how do you know if they understand that? How do you know if they understand how to encourage? How do they encourage? What is said or done that is encouraging? Get them to give examples. Get them to practice these skills, role-playing with each other, problem-solving, even videotaping things and have them bring things in, or videotape together and then have them watch their videotape, like you all do in the clinic, how you see all kinds of different things about your counseling or about your styles or techniques because you videotaped it. it's really important to be able to assess how they are learning and integrating the information. So you want to make sure that you aren't just talking to them about abstract concepts, that you are really trying to understand their understanding of the material. And then the importance of using the skills with children is stressed through practical application. So in most of your group meetings, you, the consultant, are going to make sure that parents know what their homework is for the week and make sure that they understand how to practice and make sure that they know, for example, how to encourage. So if you want to do a week on the difference between praise and encouragement, you have them just practice that. And that's going to be on their mind that week. That's going to be in the forefront of their mind, that they're going to be thinking about, oh, was that comment a praise comment? Was that comment an encouragement comment? So they can practice, and then they're going to be building on all of these skills. Stages of group. We've talked about stages of group. You all have been running groups, some of you, for a very long time, and it does not hurt to go back and brush up on some of these stages. So let's think about grade expectations. So in the beginning, people are usually excited, they're usually involved, they believe that the group is going to teach them something. Sometimes people come kind of believing that the group is going to fix them, or even that it's going to change their children. We know that that is not the case, which sometimes can leave people a little disillusioned when they figure that out. But we want to work to universalize things for members. We want to help members begin to recognize the commonality of their concerns among others. And this stages of the group can last 2 or 3 sessions. It really depends on the folks in your group, and it depends on how long your group is going. So then there's, we go from, oh, this group is going to fix me, to, wait a minute, I have to do something? You mean I have to change? Here parents begin to recognize that offering ideas to change themselves, that you're not telling them, or you're not actually changing their children. So, you might have parents who really don't have an interest in changing their behaviors, and they might become discouraged. They may become resistant or defensive, and that's okay. We know how to work with that. We have skills to work with that too. Just think about this as a transition stage. It's an opportunity for you as the consultant and as the group leader to understand their human behavior. Remember all the things that we talked about in the first 6 chapters. This is an opportunity for you to understand them, to think about their beliefs, their lifestyle, what is contributing to their behavior at this moment, and encourage them. Encourage any positive movement you see. So drawing from examples that they've said, like, oh, well, you were just saying this week how you tried X, Y, and Z, and that really worked for you. And that was hard, and you did that anyway, and good for you. And what else did others do this week? And, maybe it's really difficult to think about these things in the moment, but you all were able to do it, and you're seeing some positive changes from that. The third stage of the group that we're going to talk about is cohesiveness and commitment. So this is the final stage of the group, and it's characterized by this kind of new commitment to change on the part of the members. So they've bought in, they've seen progress, they've seen some successful things happen, whether in themselves or with their children, and they have this commitment to the other members, to themselves, to this group. And many groups kind of find it difficult to end because of this, because the experience has been so beneficial and so meaningful and has allowed them to make change in a safe way, and that it can be hard for them to want to end the group because of that. So understanding that that is a natural part of the group process, and helping them understand that that's a natural part of the group process. And also, I would go a step further to talking to folks about how they can still keep some of these bonds. So the group might be ending, the formal group might be ending, but how are some ways that folks can continue these bonds and continue to consult with each other and have support with each other, and might not be the group, would still be a really meaningful way for them to do that. All right, so I have some group videos for you all, and I am in the process right now. I didn't mention this on the first a couple of videos, and I'm recording these videos kind of out of order too. So I thought that I was going to be able to embed the videos into the PowerPoint, and I don't think that that is working. So you all are going to have to go to, when you go into the course, you go into your A to Z menu and you go down and scroll down to where it says Tegrity, and you'll see the group videos there. And I want you to watch those videos, and I want you to use the information in the rest of Chapter 8 to really try to understand the videos of these parent consultation groups. So I want you to think about the therapeutic forces involved. I want you to think about the C group that you all looked at last week in the appendix. I want you to think about the components of Adlerian family counseling and the role of the group leader. All those things I want you to kind of pull together while you're watching these videos. I also want to note for you some information on D2L. Now, I put a lot of information on D2L. I tried to really pare it down for this class because I know sometimes I can put a lot of information up that can seem overwhelming. Then you realize, oh, I don't have to read every single word of this, and I can keep this for my resources and have later, and then that kind of feels a little bit better. But sometimes when you see it all in D2L, it feels like you have to read it all and do it all. And the information that I have for you that's on the syllabus that tells you review this article, watch this video, that's the stuff that I want you to do for the class. And any other extra stuff that I have up for you is just information for you. So there is a manual for Adlerian parent consultation. I have a small video right here that should be embedded in the PowerPoint. I don't have access to the full video, but the manual includes transcripts, and it's got a lot of helpful information in there that I thought you just may want to review. You don't have to read this word for word, but I thought you may want to review it. And this is an introduction video for you. So I hope that this Adlerian Parent Consultation Manual is helpful for your resource files. So Chapter 9 is on consultation case examples. So in this chapter, you're really encouraged to consider how all of the concepts you've discussed in this book are applied to each of these examples. So everything that we've talked about, really going through a consultation case, really looking at the systemic sequence of things, diagnosis, if that is applicable, what alternatives are present, what works, what hasn't worked, and if when you're doing your case, you're going to be able to ask a lot of questions like the ones that are in the book. You may come up with your own. These examples in this chapter don't end with a specific resolution, but the examples can illustrate for you methods of consultation, and just kind of providing a framework for you as you're thinking about developing your own case. So it hopefully is going to allow you to see different possibilities and new behaviors. Hopefully get you to look at some simple techniques maybe that you haven't considered before. Maybe there are some things that you're already doing really well in the consultation that you're doing and you want to add a couple of things to it. Try out some new things that you hadn't thought about before that you're learning in this text. So just being able to do that and examine this chapter 9 that really goes through some cases here. And maybe you're thinking about what you want to do for your consultation case, and this is going to help. Maybe you've already started your consultation case, but just take some time to go through the case examples. Chapter 10 is about evaluating your consultation effectiveness. So we're going to be talking about needs assessments a little bit, and I want to talk about accountability. School counseling folks talk about accountability all the time. Y'all are probably so sick of hearing about this. And as a consultant, we are also accountable for what we do. We're accountable to the schools, to the communities, to the agencies, etc. We must measure and report our effectiveness. How do we know if something's effective? How do we know if something was successful? We have to measure it and we need to report that. So think about the jobs that you have now and the work that you're doing, whether it's with first-generation college students, high schoolers, elementary school, families, groups, mental health agencies, whatever it is, health coordinating, whatever it is that you do. I want you to think about, how do you currently measure and report the effectiveness in your role? How do you do that now? People have many different definitions of evaluation, as I'm sure you all would. If I ask everybody to write your definition, I'm sure we would all come up with different things. But essentially, evaluation includes comprehensive and intentional information, the process of collecting and analyzing data. So how do you get your information? How do you examine it? How do you know what this data is telling you? You're using established accountability. You're using all this information to document your program and intervention effectiveness, to identify areas of improvement. Again, all of this information is used to establish accountability. How do you know if something was successful? This can help you understand which interventions are effective, which interventions aren't effective, maybe which things need to be tweaked. Effectiveness can be measured by looking at the impact and looking at the outcomes of a program or an intervention, and that's why we need to understand the outcomes of the program. How do we know if something worked? So there are a lot of different types of evaluation used to measure the impact of outcomes or programs and interventions, and we're going to talk about that. We are looking at specifically these three types of evaluation: process evaluation, perception evaluation, and outcome evaluation. So process evaluation really tracks the implementation of a program or intervention and provides a record of what was accomplished. So you're tracking the number of participants involved, the number of times an intervention occurred. So you might report when you tried something new in classroom management, or you might report when you did something different in a group. Like let's say you did it at the end of the group every day for 3 weeks. So this would provide the consultant and the consultee important information about who is receiving this information and for how long. So that is important. So that's on process. Perception evaluations are used to determine the immediate impact of program or intervention efforts. So the perceptions are collected during the implementation process. You're asking people for their perceptions of how something worked or didn't work. You might use pre and post tests. You might use surveys. You might use interventions. But you're asking people for their perceptions. So in process, think about you might do something differently every day for 3 weeks or something. You might be trying something new. You might be putting something into place different. So folks don't necessarily, you're not asking folks what they thought of this new thing that you put into place. But when we talk about perception evaluation, you are asking, you're collecting this information to determine what impact this had. So again, you might be using pre and post test surveys, interviews to talk to people about their perception, their experience, how they perceived this, whatever it is. Outcome evaluation measures the impact of a program or an intervention. So it tells us what is and what isn't working. When possible, outcome evaluation includes data from many different sources. So you might emphasize school-wide data, let's say on academic achievement. You might be looking at behavioral modification programs. You might be looking at graduation rates, how many folks go to college, and you're looking at what impact something had on the evaluation. I think that when you read the book Switch, there are going to be so many different examples that you're going to be able to say, oh, that sounds like a process evaluation. That one is definitely outcome evaluation. And it just, a lot of it has to do with how you set things up. But the first step in any evaluation is to determine the needs. What are you trying to do? What are the needs of the program? This is just, I grabbed this off the internet. This is just a sample of a needs assessment that you might use in a school or you might use in a group. So you are assessing what that group needs, particularly what the school needs, maybe how to form groups around specific needs, how to address things maybe you want to do. Maybe you want to do some groups for your parents and you're trying to ask them, what are some things that you feel our school needs to address? You can have different needs assessments for different folks. So let's say you work in a school. You want to have different needs assessment for your teachers. You have different needs assessment for your parents and guardians, and then different needs assessment for your students. Think about if you work in a community agency. You might have different needs assessment for your clients. So maybe you're trying to decide what types of groups you're going to offer. Maybe you want to start offering some mindfulness groups. Maybe you want to start offering some other stress reduction type things. And you could give a needs assessment to all your clinicians and find out what do they think their clients might need. But it would also be a really good idea to ask the clients. What kinds of groups would they be interested in coming to? So there are all kinds of needs assessments for you out there already on the internet. Take some time if you haven't had to ever do this and really look at some of the ones that are out there so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It is not necessary to make up your own unless you just want to or you don't find one that you feel like is specific to meet the needs of your particular setting. The book introduces 8 steps in needs assessments. There are other needs assessments that you can look at that aren't 8 steps, that are different, that might follow a different flow. But in the book, it talks about your 8 different steps. So understanding the purpose, and I love how specific your book is. It looks like a lot of information here, but it really helps you understand how do you really go about conducting a needs assessment and all of the information that it provides. All of the steps under step 1. So what's the purpose? What's your target population? What's the budget available? Who are your stakeholders? What's your steering committee, your working group? Step 2 is looking at understanding the information that's going to be collected. What is the process to collect this information? Where are you going to be collecting it and how? What is the area of focus? What services and interventions are currently available? What's already been being done and what is working, what isn't working? Step 3 talks about determine what information already exists, what data needs to be obtained. So what information is already out there for you? So let's say you are doing something in a school. Well, you probably want to pull that school report card. Let's say you want to look at graduation rates. Well, how do you know that you want to improve graduation rates if you haven't looked at what they are already? So what is the data that is already out there that is helping you figure out what it is that you need to assess with this needs assessment? Then the 4th step is about designing the methodology. So thinking about the data. Are you going to be using quantitative, qualitative? What type of design, your needs assessment time frame. And now some of this I'm hoping is going to overlap with your action research and some of the other stuff that you're going to be doing in the EDS program. But we're not going to get too much into this for the purposes of this class, but I do want you to really start thinking about needs assessments. I'm sure you all have already done a form of needs assessment, but getting a little more specific and getting more into the nitty-gritty when it comes to designing the methodology and thinking about how you use this information. So step 5 is collecting data. So then you're actually going to go out there and collect it. And thinking about how you're administering this assessment. How are you collecting the data? What's the purpose of the assessment? Who is going to participate? All of that is important. Step 6 is your key findings. And this is a really fun part. I really love looking at this. What did you find? What was the most important thing? What's the second most important thing? What did your data tell you? And then what are you going to do with that? So step 7 is matching goals with the priorities. So maybe you're not in a school. So what are the priorities of your agency? How does this needs assessment or the data that you uncovered match specific goals? So that goes back to the purpose of the needs assessment in the first place. And then reporting the needs assessment results. How are you going to report this? Now, I included for you on D2L some information on reporting results, and it doesn't follow this exact 8-step process, and that is fine. Like I said, there are many other ways to do this. There are many other steps or other formats that are applicable. So what's going to work is if you find something that makes sense to you. So this 8-step process might make perfect sense to you, and you're like, great, this is detailed, this is specific, I got it. But you might find a different one that makes sense. So I included some information on D2L for you about writing this up and how you write that information up. And hopefully, you have some time to look over that and review it, save it, put it in your resource file, and hopefully that will come in handy for you. And this is my slide reminding me to tell you about information on D2L, which I just told you about. Another thing that I wanted to mention, I didn't want to have 3 books for this course. So I just had to make a decision. And the reason that I decided on the books that I did decide on, and not this one that is pictured on your screen right now, is because this one you can get online, you can read it online for free. So I saw in Google that you can read it for free, and you can also get the online version in the ETSU library for free. And what I like about this book is it really looks at consultation in community organizations as well, so not just the schools. Now, our consultation book, you can take this information and apply it to different settings, but it's still, you're constantly reading school. So I don't want folks who aren't in a school to zone out on that information. And this book, I felt like, had a lot of examples and some chapters and things dedicated to community organizations, mental health organizations. So I really encourage you. I didn't want to assign more reading because I know this is already a lot, but I really want to encourage you to look at this textbook. And again, you can look at it online for free, the ETSU library, and it goes into some other examples for you. So I wanted to make sure to mention that. Okay, thanks everyone.